Hey, it's Brian and Chris here, and today I want to talk about Copilot for Microsoft 365. So recently we've had some inquiries from clients about how do we add the licensing for Copilot for Microsoft 365. They're getting offers from Microsoft saying, it's $30 a month and that sort of thing. So I just want to go over a couple basics and some stuff that I noticed as we start to roll this out. Okay, so one of the first things is cost. As far as cost for the Copilot, Microsoft wants to lock you in for a year, right? So there is no month to month, at least for us, as far as we
Yeah.
go. We don't do month to month. It's $30 a month, and the clients pay up front, so they pay for the year. And then, if you had to, I guess you could move the license. If you have somebody testing it out, you could move the license to somebody else if you want multiple people to try it, or you could buy a couple licenses or whatever. But that way you're not locked in. One of the things that you're going to have to consider is, as far as deployment goes, Microsoft, when I started poking around for their documentation, a couple things I noticed. One is their onboarding process is quite extensive. They have PowerPoints, multiple PowerPoints on how to roll this out the best. Because remember, you're talking about AI. So whether it's ChatGPT or the Microsoft Copilot, whatever, you got to make sure that your information is contained, right? So they're starting to lock these AIs down. And, at least with Microsoft 365, it's staying in that Microsoft 365 ecosystem, which is good. That's a step in the right direction, right? So Copilot for Microsoft 365, it works with things like Office Suite. So PowerPoint, Teams, Microsoft Word, Excel, right? And that's what most people are going to use it for. But remember, there's a whole nother component to 365, and these documents may or may not live in SharePoint, right? So one of the things that you need to consider is data leakage, right? So there are controls that Microsoft mentions in their onboarding documentation and when you go to roll this out. Now, remember, it's best to roll this stuff out with a couple people testing this instead of rolling it out to your whole company. Don't just assign the licenses to 50, 100 people and just say, go at it, right? Like, because that's a recipe for disaster, right? You may start to lose, you may get some of this data leakage that Microsoft talks about if you don't secure things like SharePoint. So up on the screen here, I have a PowerPoint, and this comes directly from Microsoft, right? And let's see how many slides are in here, because it's crazy. There's almost 50 slides here. And this is just talking about the rollout, and this is how you should stage your rollout. I'm not going to go into all that because most of the businesses that we work with are small and medium-sized businesses. So this would be ridiculous to go through all this. But one of the things that I do point out to clients is, okay, because of the potential data leakage, you have to look at things like is mentioned in this slide. Okay, so one of the things that they have is an optimization assessment. You can get that from Microsoft. So if you're a big company, I recommend that you actually step through all this stuff. But as a smaller company, I don't know that you're going to go through the optimization assessment. So we'll skip ahead a little bit. And it's one of the questions they ask is, do you want to enable restricted SharePoint search? So one of the things Microsoft is starting to roll out is limiting the capabilities of SharePoint so you don't have this data leakage. In order to take advantage of those controls, if you look over here, it says restrict data oversharing and data leaks with manual labeling and policies. So you can do that with this licensing here. It tells you what licenses. So for example, Office 365 E3, business standard or business premium or higher. Now, I don't know what's involved with the manual process of labeling, but there is a reason why you want to go to the higher license. And it talks, if you're best in class, if you really want to keep an eye on where your data is going and, use AI in a safe way, you might have to look at what it mentions here, Microsoft 365 E5. Okay. And with that, you got auto labeling in policies, right? So you can restrict the data leakage. So this is very important. You know, this is an important consideration. Now, will all our clients choose to, go with the E3? Probably not, because it's a more expensive license. But if you really want to do this AI stuff right and safely, you would look into the higher level licensing. Okay, so that's just one slide out of 50 slides, right? So if you're going to roll this out, if you look right here, so if you go into reports on the admin center, let me see if I can bring this up. So you might have to click show all, right? And if you look under reports and then usage, you can go under Copilot for Microsoft. So this was just added. This is in preview. It says right here, preview. So like this is an actual client. And we just recently added a license to them, but it hasn't shown up yet. But at some point, I would imagine it's going to show up here. You can see how many users we have for this tenant, for this client. And it tells you how many are eligible, 147 out of the 201 licenses. And if you scroll down here, it can tell you like what, Microsoft apps are most active, right? So you can kind of figure out, I guess their thinking here is, you can figure out like, where are you most likely going to use this? So maybe Outlook email, Office docs, and I believe that, that's what the client is looking for in this case, is mostly to use the Office suite. So at some point, we're going to see some usage data in here. Who is enabled? You can see this is very scant, but this is something that you probably, a dashboard that you want to check back into once you get going with your Copilot testing. So we'll check back with these guys and see what's going on and what they think about Copilot. But those are just a couple things that I noticed in helping this client test this out. Chris, did you have anything that we might mention to people that, are just getting going with Copilot to help them out?
So where you mentioned, the prerequisite and the users on an eligible update channel, that can be altered. You can do that tenant wide for the most part. I think you go under settings on the from the admin center, and you can choose an update channel. I'm sure the documentation will list what update channel you want to be on because there's some we've had clients where they're using like 32-bit Excel extensions and macros that they got to be on a certain Office apps channel, like enterprise or a semi-annual release, so they don't get the latest features as they come out. They might be 6 to 8 months later they might get the feature, so they'd have to change their update channel, but that's something they'd have to consider when making a change like that.
Okay, so you're saying with the Office suite and the way it gets updated.
Yeah, because it shows users on an eligible update channel there, so it's out of the 201 licenses. So essentially, I'm assuming you just need to be on the release, or you might even be on one of the newer, get preview features. So like one of the cutting edge rings, I guess. They have different rings, right? They consider it a ring, update rings. So yeah, go up under settings there, the cog wheel above.
Yeah.
And then from there, it would be org settings, I think. And then in there, do we have, look through, it might be on one of these tabs. Search real quick.
Microsoft. I'm not seeing anything in here.
Check security and privacy, I think. I'll tell you right now, I'm on mine. I was just in there the other day.
Anyway, while Chris is looking for that. Yeah, go ahead, Chris.
Go to the organization profile on the far right tab.
Yeah.
And then release preferences, maybe. I think that's it. It should, see standard release, targeted release.
Okay.
So see, the targeted one gets the updates early. You might need to be on standard, but there's a whole nother setting just like this in here for where you choose the ring. So it would be release preview, release, or enterprise, semi-annual, I think. Let me look up the rings.
Yeah, so what Chris is talking about here, it says right here, this affects this setting. Well, this says this setting doesn't affect how apps get.
Right. This is how you'd set it if you want. Say you only had one user. you'd set that target user to the update channel. If say you were on something like semi-annual and that, let's just hypothetically, it doesn't work with the enterprise semi-annual release. You could set a targeted release for select users where, they're only the ones getting the latest and greatest, whereas everyone else stays on semi-annual. Like you can just get kind of granular with it. That's all I'm saying.
Okay, all right. So that's something to be aware of if you're not seeing the different features in
Okay,
Copilot. I
so
guess that's
now
what you're saying, Chris.
now go to services. Nope, up top there. And then scroll down to M, Microsoft 365 install options, right there. So this is what I'm talking about where, see, the
Okay.
semi-annual enterprise channel, there's certain versions you can deploy. Like if you have older 32-bit macros or something, you're probably better off on the every 6 months. So, any kind of on-premise infrastructure needed for certain software you use, that's big with accountants, stuff like that. They might be on semi-annual and they may, currently the build that 2308 may not be eligible for Copilot for M365 yet.
Right,
So what you
right.
can do is do a targeted release the way where we looked at earlier.
Okay, so yeah, that's a good point. So you're gonna make sure that you're at least on this one, the recommended, but you may have to be on something a little more aggressive if that doesn't work, if you're not seeing the features.
No, right. But what I'm saying is you need to check what the software you're using. If you're using something that's using legacy, apps or VBA macros, most of those vendors recommend that they're on the semi-annual update every 6 months because they're not well kept and they're problematic at times. So, but if you wanted to test it for a user, what you could do is go set that targeted release, do as soon as they're ready, only for a couple users, say, who are going to use Copilot, and leave everyone else on semi-annual.
Yeah. Okay. All right. That's a good point. All right. Thank you.